good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gents. This is a podcast from Orlando, Florida, on this awesome international podcast, Good Wine and Great Laughs, the podcast for wine lovers, ladies and gents, summer movies, review, and hot topic discussion. I'm your boy Casanova. Welcome to Casa Casanova. Every Saturday morning at 10 a.m., I have the wine of the day, ladies and gents, followed by the hot top discussion. During the summer months of June and July, I go to the movie theaters and I check all the movies that are coming out on Netflix, Hulu, and all Amazon Prime, all this streaming platforms, and I do a movie review. So if you like wine, if you like movies, and if you like hot top discussions, ladies and gents, this YouTube channel is for you. If you like the work that I do, ladies and gents, I will ask you only three things. Please subscribe, click on the like button on every video that you watch, and share any video that you watch from this YouTube channel with at least 5 people that you know. I appreciate your support, ladies and gents. But before I talk about the wine of the day, ladies and gents, let you know today is Saturday, October 4th, 2025, and the weather here in Orlando, ladies and gents, is going to be overcast with some rain showers at times. So more likely it's going to be raining on and off all day long. Highs of 74, 84, and lows of 74, ladies and gents. All right, so before I start talking about the topic of the day, let's open this wine. I told you that I would bring the original one. I have the white Merlot right here, ladies and gents, and I say, to me, it was very high on acidity. So it's not like my favorite wine. So I said, let me get it the same brand, Trivento, the regular Malbec, to see what this all about and the difference. So once again, it's Trivento Malbec, ladies and gents. This wine is from Argentina, and this is a vintage of 2023. According to the label in the back, it said the Trivento Argentina Reserve Malbec. 3 winds created the ideal land for growing wine and revealed the symbol that has guided us to this day. Discover an epic origin. Discover Trivento, carmine red Malbec with pleasurable tannins, manifest red fruit aromas with subtle spices and smoke from the oak. All right, alcohol percent. This wine is 13%, ladies and gents. Once again, this wine is from Argentina. Let me take a bite of my delicious Brazilian snack right here because I brush my teeth, so I definitely don't want this. All right. Ooh, look at that. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the picture of this wine bottle is going to be available on all my social medias. And if you like what you hear and want to find out this wine on any of your local wine store, the picture is going to be available once again for you on all social medias, ladies and gents. Ladies and gents, I had many Malbecs in my days. And even though they gave all this information, I will give you a 7 for this brand. I think, in my personal opinion, Trivento does not make great wines. My personal food, all to the two wines. I'm not talking about the Malbec. I cannot generalize for all the wine that they have, but for this particular one right here, such as the regular Malbec, that's this one, and the white Malbec, I give a 7. The white Malbec for me has too many acidity. I do not like it. This one right here is okay, but I do not like, oh my God, what a great Malbec. In my personal and humble opinion, ladies and gents. So we may like I say, different people, different taste buds. You may buy this Malbec because you love Malbec wines and you may fall in love with it. In my personal opinion, once again, ladies and gents, I give a 7. Would I buy another Malbec for this brand? I would not, because once again, I already told you, I know other brands that have, in my personal opinion, my taste, a better taste than this one here. But I give a 7. Now it's up to you, ladies and gents. If you want to try it, go right ahead. Knock yourself out. It's up to you. All right. So let's jump on the topic of the day, ladies and gents. And the topic of the day for season 11, episode 10 is, and here we go, another federal shutdown thanks for incompetent Republicans. Exactly, that's what I say. Whatever excuse they try to give, they have the White House, they have the Congress, and they have they have the House and the Senate, ladies and gents. So there's no excuse for them to not. They are majority in everything, so they should do the right thing and pass a budget that will not cause damage to anybody. But they want in order for them to pass the budget, going to show the videos is to cut a lot of cuts, including Medicare and healthcare for Americans, ladies and gents. I give credit to MSNBC, the Glenn Kirshner. I give credit to the Midas Touch, and News Nation, ladies and gents. These are the videos, News Nation as well. These are the videos that you're going to watch, and the description and the link for them is going to be available on my description. So feel free to go there and subscribe to them if you like to and want to know more information about it. The link for these videos, you can click over there and can go to their YouTube channel. All right. So enough talking, ladies and gents, because it is showtime.
As the clock strikes midnight in just over 10 seconds, our government is shutting down. That is because Congress could not agree on a spending bill. Now the two sides seem to be ready to wait it out to get what they want, though we may see some activity on the Hill on Friday after the Yom Kippur holiday. During a shutdown, of course, Social Security, Medicare, VA benefits, and student loans will continue, but many other agencies will be closed. And 750,000 federal workers could be furloughed. Others, like air traffic controllers, who we need life or death, and TSA officers will continue working, but without getting paid. I just want to say that one more time. Can you imagine if your boss tomorrow was like, yeah, absolutely come to work and no one's paying you? That is what we are expecting these workers to do. This is the 6th shutdown in the last 30 years. The last government shutdown was the longest in history, lasting 35 days during Donald Trump's first term. Let's bring in our panel. Michael Schnell is here, MSNBC congressional reporter. Dave Weigel, political reporter for Semaphore. Former Democratic Senator Doug Jones of Alabama. And David Gura, correspondent for Bloomberg and host of the Big Take podcast. Michael, lay this out for us, because when we spoke to you in the last hour, it didn't seem like there were many folks in the hall. And it continues to be surprising, because when there are sort of events like this, that's when we hear, pizza deliveries all night long. They're burning the midnight oil. They've gone home and gone to bed. And TSA workers and other employees are expected to go to work and not get paid tomorrow. Congress is getting paid and they're asleep.
Yeah, Stephanie, I think you make a great point right there. For hours now, lawmakers have not been on Capitol Hill. Senators left after those two votes late afternoon, early evening. And I think that really underscores the fact that the two sides here just simply aren't talking. Negotiations are not happening because Democrats and Republicans are so entirely dug in. Now, look, we could see some movement tomorrow. That's the next time the Senate is set to vote, or rather, I should say today now, since we are on October 1st and the government is officially shut down. At 11 a.m., the Senate's going to hold another two votes, both on that Democratic crafted spending bill and that Republican crafted spending bill. Though these are the two pieces of legislation that failed to advance yesterday, we're expecting the same outcome later today because we haven't seen any side blink or show any indication or interest in folding on their demands and concerns. So again, Stephanie, this gets back to the point you mentioned. The two sides aren't talking because they are just so far apart on how they think a shutdown should be, or rather on how they see the government should reopen.
Doug, where do you think this is going to go? I mean, just today, when one would guess the two sides would be negotiating or the president would be working the phones, we talked about it in the last hour. The president was giving a speech to military officials. So if this is where we are tonight, where do you think we're going to go from here if both sides are here?
Well, I'm going to have a little bit of a contrary opinion than I think most people have had. I think Donald Trump wants a shutdown. I think he said there are good things that can come from a shutdown. I think he is planning to cut a lot of jobs, not just furlough people. I think he's planning on firing people. And you can say that he would do that anyway, but I think he's using this as an excuse, and they're going to get what they want out of this. They're going to cut the programs. They're going to cut people and fire people. Right now, he's got the courts backing him up to do that. And then they will do something to come to the table with the Democrats on Medicaid and on the subsidies. That's how I think this ends. I think Democrats end up getting a fair amount of what they want once Donald Trump slashes the government once again.
And how does Donald Trump slashing the government help him politically?
Stephanie, with all due respect, I don't think he gives a damn about helping himself politically.
Exactly.
I really don't. This guy, we're not in a normal situation here. He's not going to run again. He's making a ton of money. I don't think he really cares about the politics of this. I think he has a mission of power. I think he has a mission of taking control, of implementing Project 2025, and that's all he cares about right now. I don't see him really paying attention to the polls the way you saw that in his first administration. And you can talk about the midterms coming up, but I think he's got plans for the midterms, which is one of the reasons why he addressed the military today.
Wowzers. David Weigel, what do you think of all of this right now? I mean, it doesn't feel like there's urgency in moving this thing.
No, and I agree with Senator Jones that the administration and Russ Vought in particular have been on the record before they took power about how they wanted to use every tool necessary, in Vought's words, to traumatize federal workers. So this is seen as an opportunity by them. The problem for Democrats has been, what's the lever they can pull to prevent these layoffs? Is it funding the government and the Trump administration saying we're not going to spend money, or is it this mechanism we're seeing right now? So, yes, I agree with that. This is the administration is going to move as it's been moving, with the added argument that it needs to cut costs because of the government shutdown. Now, I don't know what Democrats will say, but there will be attention paid to the sort of things that are being funded, like this Argentina bailout that are not being affected by the shutdown. But the Democratic starting position is basically desperation.
I want to press pause because I want you to explain that to our audience. So again, in the last 4 days, something that very few people would have ever expected would happen, the United States government, led by our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has proposed a $20 billion bailout for Argentina that is not even a top trading partner for the United States. So explain this to us again. The shutdown will not impact that.
No, it won't. You said it very well. There are mechanisms that are going to remain in place, spending plans that are not going to be affected by this. What is going to be affected, I think, is going to be what OMB wants to be affected, which are agencies that they've been trying to shrink all year, and they can shrink further without much concern about how that's going to affect the government. Look, the most pro-government cutting conservative will point to Doge and say, look, things didn't collapse after Doge, so we can keep doing that. But you're right. The Argentina bailout, that's one of the things that's going to continue to fund. Debt service will continue to be funded. This is not an administration that's acting like a crisis is coming down the pike because of a shutdown the way that Barack Obama did. They are very comfortable in what they're going to be able to do with the government not being technically funded.
$20 billion for us to truly put our thumb on a presidential election in another country. So let's say we're not going to get the jobs report on Friday. What will the impact of that be?
Well, we're not going to get it. I think that's the consensus. And that
maybe the president wants that.
Maybe he wants that. It comes at a crucial time, though, when you have Federal Reserve policymakers really trying to figure out where this economy is. Economists outside the Fed trying to do that as well. This is key information, important information, despite what we've heard from President Trump and his allies about the integrity of that data or how comprehensive that data is. This is, as you know, data that so many people rely on to give us a sense of how the economy is doing. We shouldn't stop there, though, because if the BLS can't give that data on Friday, it's also going to stop collecting data for future releases. And that's not just going to happen in the Labor Department, it's going to happen in the Commerce Department as well. This has wide-ranging effects across the entire economy. So you think of cost of living allowances that come with Social Security, that's tied to the CPI data. If that's frozen, if that's not collected in the same way, that's going to have real-world impacts on people in this country as well.
And we were already struggling to accurately get that data, which is the reason we've had to have all of these revisions after the reports have come out.
Again, you hear from policymakers, not that they're operating blindly, but they're in a very strange economy right now. We were talking about the labor market as it exists right now. You have policymakers trying to figure out why it is the way it is, why inflation has been more sticky than they thought it would be or it should be. All of this data is just so crucial for them who are making, again, real-world decisions about how this economy is going moving forward. And to not have that fundamental data is going to be a huge deficit for them.
Michael, what are the effects that these layoffs are going to have on everyday Americans?
Yeah, well, I think it's a lot of the things that you mentioned. Well, just, to set the baseline, these are going to be thousands of federal workers who a lot of folks in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere interact with on a daily basis. And if they don't interact with them, they do some things in their daily lives that sort of come to fruition because of these federal workers. So a lot of things in Washington and, again, other daily uses outside the country. And I think that, something that's going to be interesting here and an interesting dynamic, particularly to watch in this shutdown, is President Trump himself has said that he wants to do irreversible changes, potentially irreversible cuts. That's in addition to the typical furloughs that we see in these shutdown circumstances. And this potential, this contingency, Stephanie, I will note, was basically the reason why we didn't see a shutdown happen back in March. Remember, at that point, Democrats were standing strong against the Republican funding bills, but then Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and others decided to vote in favor of the Republican spending bill because they were nervous about what President Trump, the OMB director, Russ Vought, what they would do in the midst of a shutdown, because the OMB has jurisdiction over which federal workers can work, which are not, and this potential for these furloughs and further cuts. So I think that what's going to be really interesting now is to see how far President Trump and Russ Vought go with that and how much Democrats are able to handle before they realize and say, hey, the damage may be too much here. We've got to think about supporting some sort of funding bill that would open the government if that ends up being potentially that House-passed bill that doesn't include those health care provisions.
But Dave, today you wrote that a government shutdown is not going to make a difference in some of those key elections that are, just a few weeks away. I'm talking New Jersey, Virginia. How come?
Well, that's both parties' consensus on how those races are shaping up. On the Republican side, they want in New Jersey to close this race out on Mikey Sherrill's Navy records. Complicated. She won't get into all of it. They want to close on energy costs. In Virginia, Republicans have been very focused on schools' policies towards transgender people. And this is an X factor. They don't want to be talking about government layoffs. They don't want to be talking about a shutdown. In Virginia, terrible issue for Republicans. You saw Glenn Youngkin trying to massage it and blaming Democrats. Democrats did withhold their votes, but both parties are pretty confident. Look, if people see chaos in D.C. and they see Donald Trump taking credit or saying he'll take advantage, I should say, of a shutdown, they're going to blame them. New Jersey, less of an issue. But everything I'm pointing to is another example of how this is not 2019, this is not 2011, this is not these prior experiences we've had recently where there's nervousness and fear about how this will play out. Both parties are kind of shrugging and saying this has not been coming up organically on the trail.
All right. Well, Doug, I mean, what's interesting, right? Republicans are blaming Democrats. Democrats are blaming Republicans. Republicans control the government. This is on them. However, when a shutdown like this happens, what does it do? It damages the relationship and the trust the American people have in our government. And we know that trust has been eroding over the last few years. You were in the Senate during the last shutdown. Explain to us what it was like then. And Dave was just trying to touch on it. How different was that situation than what we're facing now?
Well, yeah, I think there's a number of things that were different. I mean, you still had, Donald Trump as president. He was holding out for certain things, and Democrats were trying to make sure that they did what they were supposed to do, to try to do the things for their constituencies and the things that they believed in. They were trying to help govern. Trump and Republicans didn't really care that much about governing. I don't think they care that much about governing this time. They do not want to meet with Democrats and talk about it. Remember, I don't think people really like the fact that Democrats have been trying to talk to the leadership and trying to talk to the president for weeks. And it was just within the last day or so that they were able to have an actual meeting. And, people want folks to kind of talk to each other and work. The one thing that Democrats have done is that they have consistently and publicly said, we want to meet, we want to talk, we don't want to shut the government down, but they're not talking to us. This is not a clean bill. They try to say it's a clean bill, but because of the big, beautiful bill that passed with all the cuts that were going on, they have made it an unclean bill. And Democrats have got to remind people about that, and they're trying to salvage what they can for the American people.
If we start to see sort of mass layoffs here, is that going to actually impact the unemployment in this country? Like when we're talking about numbers in the thousands, that's not one factory here, one business there. I mean, these are jobs all around the country.
Yeah, I think that it definitely will. We saw that during the first round of these layoffs at the beginning of President Trump's second term. And I also think it's bound to raise some anxiety in the market as well. As we've talked about, I think that investors have gotten kind of inured or used to the way these shutdowns unfold. We no longer talk about regular order and the way things had been done in Washington. We've become used to the fact that there are these shutdowns and these funding battles. And Wall Street, I think, has some distaste for the way that Washington operates, the way all of this works. But they kind of look the other way as all of this happens. As we've talked about, if we have Russ vote and the White House announcing cuts to programs and cuts to government workers, that complicates kind of the plan that we've seen time and time again in these shutdowns.
How?
That we've seen furloughs before, but we know that those workers will be paid.
It was just a pause.
It was just a pause, and there wasn't really a huge economic impact as a result of that. Yes, there's some, and I don't mean to diminish, as we've talked about, people who have been working for no money for a set period of time, but things reset themselves, and you look at subsequent quarters, the economy bounces back. If you have this scale of layoffs here, it's a real factor of uncertainty that we haven't dealt with before, what that would mean for the economy going forward.
Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, with the Republicans in complete control of government, the White House, the House of Representatives, the Senate, they just decided to shut down the federal government. You know, as a federal government employee for 3 decades, I lived through plenty of federal government shutdowns, and I know what it looks like from the inside. I know how it impacts the public servants and our families, the people who, even through a federal government shutdown, are doing the hard work of the American people. But I am not a political expert or pundit. I've never even tried to play one on TV, but I know somebody who is. Brian Tyler Cohen. Now, you may have seen Brian and I do legal analysis work together. We do what's called the legal breakdown. We do about 5 or 6 legal analysis videos every week. They post on Brian's channel. And I've come to know Brian over the years as a true expert in all things political. So I turned to him because I wanted to get his take on the implications and the consequences of this Republican federal government shutdown. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Brian Tyler Cohen. With that, let's get going. Brian, thanks for jumping on our Substack Live here.
Thanks for having me. I was going to say for the pitch for Legal Breakdown, you all don't have to watch all 604, but as close to it as you can get.
Yeah. Okay, so the reason I wanted to bring Brian on is because we are now on the verge of a federal government shutdown. So what I know about federal government shutdowns is what happens to federal government employees, because I lived through 7 of them. And I'll talk along the way a little bit about what that means for public servants, for people inside government. But what I'm, I think, most keenly interested in and why I brought Brian on is because he is a true political expert. You can't do any better than his assessment of the political landscape. And he's pretty good at sort of projecting out what the political implications are of, any particular development. So let's assume that they can't reach a compromise tonight. That's the way it's looking. And as of, I guess, tomorrow, the federal government shuts down. Now, recognizing that the Republicans have the White House, the House, and the Senate, do you think the Dems are going to be able to message that this is a Republican shutdown? How do you see this playing out politically?
So there's been polling from a raft of different firms, Navigator, Morning Consult, about 7 different firms. All of them show that the vast majority of the blame would fall onto Republicans for doing this. But look, I think that the Democrats are actually smart to make their red line here that they want ACA subsidies extended. This is a Republican Party that has shown they are nothing if not hostile to healthcare. They've just stripped 17 million Americans of Medicaid and eliminated these ACA subsidies in this one big beautiful bill moving forward. So healthcare premiums are going to rise 75 to 100%. So the one point of leverage that Democrats wanted to use, because this is not done through reconciliation. This is a continuing resolution. So you need 60 votes in the Senate to be able to pass it. So you need some Democratic votes. Democrats said, okay, we'll sign on to this thing, but we need to make sure that we can extend ACA subsidies. That is a obvious move, a popular move, and by the way, a move that is going to disproportionately help Republicans, because since 2020, the states that have seen the vast majority of growth in ACA subsidy, in ACA enrollment are Republican states. It's West Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, and so all of the states that have seen the largest amount of growth are states that voted for Trump in 2024. And Republicans right here, they are staking their reputation here on this idea that, okay, what the Democrats want is healthcare for illegal immigrants. That's what they're saying. Even though the truth of the situation is not a single dime of ACA subsidies goes to undocumented immigrants. So that's a complete lie. And Republicans are just so hell-bent on making sure that they can rip healthcare away from Americans so that Americans don't have affordable healthcare, whether it's 17 million Americans who rely on Medicaid or 20 million Americans who don't want to see their premiums rise 60, 70, 80, 90, 100%. After this shutdown, Republicans do not care because healthcare is an issue that doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter to them, and they need some way to offset this hole that they're going to blow in the deficit because they wanted to give themselves tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. And the way that they found to do that is just to take healthcare away from people. So they're not going to relent because they need some way to offset these massive costs. And healthcare is just an easy way to do it. And they're wealthy enough that it doesn't really impact them.
So you think this will work to the detriment of the Republicans?
Look, I mean, the reality is everybody loses in a shutdown. I think it's smart for Democrats to be able to say that our red line here is extending these ACA subsidies that benefit both Democrats and Republicans across the country. It's another story entirely if Democrats are going to have the ability to actually message this thing. We've seen that Democrats leave a lot to be desired when it comes to effectively messaging the base or this country. And meanwhile, you've got a Republican propaganda machine that hums along 24 hours a day, where they can spew these lies like what the Democrats want is to fund undocumented immigrants getting health care, when there's not an ounce of truth to that. But no one on right-wing media is going to correct Donald Trump. Nobody in the Republican base is going to correct Donald Trump. I just came off of News Nation, where I was debating Mick Mulvaney. Mick Mulvaney is his former Office of Management and Budget director from his first term. Even he wouldn't say on air, wouldn't concede on air the objective reality that not a dime from ACA subsidies goes to undocumented immigrants. So these people are going to keep up the con as long as they can. And when you're dealing with a Republican Party for whom shame doesn't exist, it's going to be very difficult to message. And look, I think that's the importance of what we're doing right now, talking to everybody who's tuning into this. I think that's the importance of your channel and making sure that people can get the truth of the situation. It's what I try to do on my channels on a daily basis, but it's going to take a major effort from those of us who are actually have some adherence to facts and reality to get the truth out, because Republicans are shameless in their ability to lie.
So let me shift from the political to the practical for a minute and just give people some inside baseball about what actually happens to federal government employees when the government shuts down. First of all, the federal government doesn't really completely shut down, because essential services, and that's the buzz term, continue on even during a government shutdown. Of course, the reality is, guess what? We don't get paid during the shutdown. So we are there working for free. Now, ordinarily, we will get our back pay when a funding bill goes through, but it's not a guarantee. So here's what happens. So essential services are things like federal police agencies, the courts, prosecutors, criminal defense attorneys who are on the government dime, like the Federal Public Defender Service. These are essential agencies. Now, obviously, kind of DOJ and criminal law is my bailiwick. I'm not exactly sure what happens with the EPA or other agencies or organizations. But here's what I can tell you: they go from agency to agency, and they ask the leadership of each agency to designate which employees are essential and which employees are not essential. When I was a supervisor, the chief of homicide, I found it particularly offensive that we would go through the U.S. Attorney's Office and actually designate some employees not essential, but thank you for your public service. We could do without your, it was offensive. It was demeaning. And, but that was the reality. So the game that most agency heads would play is they tried to designate as many employees as essential as possible to, keep their people getting their government salary. So the reality is a government shutdown isn't really a full government shutdown. But let me ask you this. I have seen some reporting that Trump is now threatening, mass firings if there is a government shutdown. I've seen some of the unions that represent public government employees saying, yeah, well, that wouldn't be lawful. When has that stopped Donald Trump?
Exactly.
Right. But what's your take on the prospect of mass firings and how that could, impact the political calculus?
He's going to use anything as a pretext to be able to do that. If he sees that Congress is not in session and that he has as if he would use Congress as a barrier anyway, as if he would view Congress as an obstacle. But if there is no Congress in session, then of course he's going to barrel ahead. And you know what? In large part, the Supreme Court has agreed with him in instance after instance. And so if he views this as kind of his runway to be able to do that, then he will take this opportunity to fire people by the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. And adding to the point that you made before, where he'll go agency by agency, he's not going to ask the agency heads who they deem essential. He's going to deem who he thinks is essential based on his own based on his own political beliefs. And so he's going to make sure that every, ICE agent stays funded. He's going to make sure that nobody at the EPA is funded. Nobody at the VA is funded. And he's going to use this as a way to shoehorn through the political agenda that he's wanted to see shoehorn through. But now he recognizes he's got a clear runway to do that because there's nobody standing in his way. And moreover, beyond that, you'd mentioned the folks who are going to have to work without pay. Think about how that's going to present itself with TSA agents, for example.
Right.
They are essential personnel, so they'll be able to continue working, but they're not going to get paid. And so a lot of them are going to call out because most people don't want to show up to work if they're not getting a paycheck. Think about the way in which that's going to manifest itself in airport delays. We're going to have 1.3 million active military members who are not going to get paid, all thanks to the guy who claims that he's the best friend to the men and women of the troops. We're going to have 750,000 government workers, 725,000 civilian workers. So there are beyond millions of people who are going to be impacted by this, not just who collect a government paycheck, but also who rely on government services to just fulfill their everyday lives. And all of that is going to be impacted. And all of this could be mitigated if only Donald Trump would relent on the smallest olive branch that Democrats are seeking to extend, which is to just deign to allow Americans to keep their health care at the same cost that it is right now, as opposed to seeing those health care costs double.
Yeah, I think Donald Trump's thinking is keep them sick, keep them weak. You can control them more easily. They can't fight back. They can't rise up. They can't march, protest, and rally in the kind of numbers that we need to topple a dictator. And I think he's a sadist. I really do think he gets off on the suffering of others. So let me ask you this. What do you think is the smartest political play for the Dems right now?
Well, I think right now it is smart to continue to hold out to try to get these ACA subsidies because A, the vast majority of Americans are going to blame Republicans for the shutdown anyway. And B, if we don't get these ACA subsidies now, we are virtually guaranteed to see 20 million Americans watch their healthcare costs rise 70, 80, 90, 100%, which will mean that a lot of those people just aren't going to be able to afford healthcare. Or if they're able to afford healthcare, it comes at the expense of something else. It comes at the expense of food. It comes at the expense of housing, whatever it may be. And for those who say, well, just pass a clean CR and we'll delve into the healthcare stuff after. Do you really take these Republicans at face value when they say, "Oh, don't worry, just pass a clean CR and we'll give up some ground on healthcare later"? This is the same Republican Party that just cut Medicaid from 17 million Americans. Those are the people that we're going to trust when they say, "Oh, hey, we're totally, definitely going to sit down with you and hash out this ACA subsidy plan later." Like, there are no opportunities other than this, where Democrats have any leverage. And again, because this is not reconciliation, because this is a CR and it goes through regular order, and we need 60 Democrats in the Senate, that means we need 60 votes in the Senate, which means we need 7 Democratic senators to cross over. They've got some leverage now. And there are never situations where Democrats have leverage. Remember, Republicans control the House, the Senate, the White House. They've generally got carte blanche to do whatever they want to do. And so if we care about healthcare, which we do, if we care about making sure that people's last line of defense in terms of staying healthy and not, which we do, then this is the chance to actually flex our muscles a little bit and make sure that we can get this done. And short of this, we're not going to have opportunities unless you trust this Republican Party to swoop in and be the white knights when it comes to healthcare in the immediate aftermath of them screwing over 17 million Americans. Then this is the opportunity to dig in and try to get something done.
And friends, you can see why I invited Brian on to give us his political analysis, because you're not going to get any better than that. So let's finish up with this, Brian, because I always like to try to find a point of light or leave on a note of optimism. Is there anything you're seeing on the landscape right now that gives you a little bit of hope, a little bit of optimism moving forward?
Two things. One, again, the polling that I alluded to before that shows that the vast majority of Americans are going to blame Republicans for that. I think that's important because we have learned that this Republican Party is not immune to pressure. Yes, Donald Trump is an autocrat. He is an authoritarian, and this Republican Party has presented itself as complete supplicants to Trump. But they're not immune to popular pressure, and I think that's important as these poll numbers continue to show that if a shutdown occurs, that Donald Trump will be the one to shoulder most of the blame, and the Republicans will be the one to shoulder most of the blame. That, as you yourself say, pressure bursts pipes, and I think that we will see a situation where, if the blame continues to lean heavily or weigh heavily on this Republican Party, that we might see some movement. And the other thing is that with the Jimmy Kimmel situation, it shows that Democrats do have the ability to elicit some change if we can figure out how to get organized. And prior to the Jimmy Kimmel situation, even I kind of felt resigned to the fact that a lot of these companies, a lot of these media outlets, law firms, universities, whatever it may be, only felt that financial pain comes at the hands of Donald Trump and nobody else. And what that boycott against Disney and ABC showed is that, in fact, consumers and the majority of Americans can have a bigger impact to their bottom lines than just Donald Trump. And so the calculus then becomes, which is going to be worse? Is it going to be, is capitulation to Trump inevitable because that's the only way that we can lessen the financial pain? Or is there a worse financial pain that we can endure? And we showed that there was. And so I hope that serves as a wake-up call to the majority of Americans who recognize, hey, if we can get our shit together, come together, organize, and do what we have to do to make sure that we can levy some pain on the people who are seeking to take unpopular positions, then we can really bring about a change that otherwise wouldn't have been able to come about before. So the Kimmel situation gives me some hope. The polling situation as far as the shutdown gives me some hope. And it's going to rely largely on people making sure that they're paying attention. You know, the Kimmel situation was a little bit easier because that cross through the cultural Rubicon in a way that most political issues don't. Like, everybody knows who Jimmy Kimmel is. Everybody understands the very simple story of the government suppressing free speech. It's a very easy story to understand. The government shutdown is a little bit more opaque when it comes to the vast majority of Americans. So it relies on, everybody here who's paying attention to this Substack Live. It relies on regular people making sure to stay on top of this issue. And when there comes a point to exert some pressure onto these people, which we can do right now, by the way. If folks who are watching this live in a state or a district with a Republican senator or member of Congress, use this opportunity to call them and say, hey, if Democrats only olive branch here, the only leverage that they're putting on you right now is that they want to extend ACA subsidies. I rely on ACA subsidies. Why would you not vote for that? Again, it's the majority of states that have signed on to these ACA subsidies in the last 5 years are states that voted for Donald Trump. This is not a red versus blue issue. This is Donald Trump as a billionaire deciding by fiat that nobody deserves healthcare in this country because it's not an issue that impacts him because he's wealthy enough to afford it. So he's going to go ahead and pit, working class Americans against undocumented immigrants with a lie about how somehow they're responsible for this. It's just a billionaire pitting working class white people against working class brown people. And fuck that. It's so clear to see what he's doing. And so we have the ability to lean on these people. So if you live in a Republican state, if you have a Republican member of Congress, go ahead and call them. They log these calls. I know it feels like an archaic means of communication as we sit here on Substack Live broadcasting to the whole country, but the reality is they log those calls and they have an impact. And if they start to see an influx in their offices of people calling and saying, hey, sign on to these ACA subsidies, I don't want to pay more for my health care, then that's going to start to weigh on these people who have to decide whether they want to side with Donald Trump because they're afraid of the God King, or if they want to side with their own constituents who have the ability to vote them out of office.
I'm with you on the Kimmel thing. That's one of the places I have found some hope and optimism because, Donald Trump thinks he's big and bad and everybody is going to sort of cower in his presence. And the man couldn't keep Kimmel off the air for more than 1 week. Yeah. So it proves he's not very good at this dictator thing. But it also proves that when you have Disney and ABC and even Sinclair and Nexstar at first catering to Trump, but then when, they had other concerns that were more important to them, and we know what they are, their profit margin, their bottom line, what did they do? They went against the dictator. They made a different decision. So that should also embolden and encourage, for example, the law firms who at first bent the knee. Guess what, fellas and ladies? It's not too late to make a better decision that will ultimately be in the interest of your bottom line, and it will also be in the interest of American democracy. So you know what? If Jimmy Kimmel can do it, if Disney can do it, if Sinclair of all outlets can do it, you know what? Everybody can do it.
And I would just add, for people right now looking for something to do, and by the way, I promise you it will feel good to do something, pick up the phone after this and call 202-221-3121. That's the switchboard. You can talk to your member of Congress. You can talk to your senator. Again, the number is 202-224-3121. Call them. Make sure to leave a message. Make sure to talk to the operators there. I hope I said that number correct both times. 202-224-3121. Go ahead and call your member of Congress. Go ahead and call your senator, and it makes a difference. And they log these calls.
Yeah, call them because pressure bursts pipes. So keep the pressure on. All right, Brian, thank you for jumping on. Thank you for the expert political analysis. Thank you for your tireless voice in this fight for American democracy. And I'll see you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, everybody.
As the shutdown does stay in place, government workers are bracing for thousands of expected layoffs and firings. President Trump and members of his administration have warned for days that job cuts are coming, although it's unclear exactly who and how many will happen. Meanwhile, they've already announced billions in funding cuts for previously approved projects, primarily in blue states. News Nation's Kelly Myers live for us at the White House with the very latest. So, Kelly, what could the White House do today?
Yeah, hey there, Nicole. Day 3 into this government shutdown, and the White House is preparing for widespread firings that could impact thousands of working Americans, they tell us. A senior White House official telling our Libby Dean today that the White House already has a list of around a dozen agencies it plans to target with firings during the government shutdown. The tally of agencies still being worked out as the Trump administration decides what cuts to make. President Trump says he didn't want cuts during a shutdown and still places the blame on Democrats.
There could be firings, and that's their fault. And it could also be other things. I mean, we could cut projects that they wanted, favorite projects, and they'd be permanently cut. A lot of people are saying Trump wanted this, that I wanted this closing, and I didn't want it. But a lot of people are saying it because I'm allowed to cut things that should have never been approved in the first place. And I will probably do that.
And the Washington Post is reporting that senior government officials are privately warning against these firings. Nicole.
So, Kelly, there are signs President Trump is specifically threatening states that went against him in the election. What are you hearing?
Yeah, there are signs that for President Trump, the shutdown is shining a light on Democratic states, with the president focusing on cutting funding specifically in those states. Here's why we say this. His administration cut $8 billion in green energy projects, all in states that voted for his 2024 rival Kamala Harris. The projects in states, those range from California to Delaware, the home state of Joe Biden, to New York to Illinois. And it's not just blue states, it's the blue cities, too, slashing more than $2 billion in funding for Chicago and $18 billion in funding for major infrastructure projects in Senator Chuck Schumer's state of New York, impacting public transportation in both cities here. And the White House says the project cuts are being made for the same reason. Quote, "We are concerned the Biden administration was handing out taxpayer dollars to pay for the construction based on DEI," adding the Transportation Department is reviewing the contracts to see if they were unconstitutional. And Democratic California Congressman Jared Huffman said the president's cuts, they're going to backfire, he says, and are going to hurt hardworking people in both blue and red states, he says. The White House press briefing we are watching for right now set to be underway in about an hour, half hour from now. Nicole.
All right, Kelly Meyer live for us there at the White House. Kelly, thank you.
The chair lays before the House a communication.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., October 3rd, 2025. I hereby designate the period from Tuesday, October 7th, 2025 through Monday, October 13th, 2025 as a district work period under Clause 13 of Rule 1. Signed sincerely, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
There you have it. MAGA Mike Johnson has declared that there will be another at least week-long vacation in the House of Representatives, and that vacation may extend many weeks through the entire month of October. You saw there at the beginning, that's what was being announced in the House of Representatives. MAGA Mike essentially shutting down the House of Representatives, telling Republicans, do not show up. This as we are in a government shutdown. Now, one of the key reasons that MAGA Mike Johnson is doing this is that he and Donald Trump want this shutdown. We see that the MAGA Republicans are giddy. Donald Trump posting AI memes of himself as the Grim Reaper, destroying federal government workers' lives and going after blue states and blue cities and people who he doesn't like and calling them all radical. But another critical reason why MAGA Mike is telling the Republicans that the House of Representatives is officially closed is he's trying to avoid swearing in the Democratic Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva from Arizona's 7th Congressional District, who won by more than 40 points in a special election about 2 weeks ago. She would be the 218th signature on the Jeffrey Epstein discharge petition. I should call it the Trump Epstein discharge petition to release the Epstein files, or to force a full vote on the House floor for the release of the Epstein files. You'll recall that that discharge petition has been led by Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna, as well as Republican Congressmember Thomas Massie. We should officially be calling this government shutdown the Donald Trump Jeffrey Epstein shutdown, because that's one of the main reasons that they're shutting this government down, to avoid this discharge petition. You're seeing it in action right there. This is the official notice from the House Press Gallery. The chair announced the Speaker's designation of Tuesday, October 7th through Monday, October 13th as a district work period. In other words, paid vacation for the members of the House of Representatives as Americans suffer from the shutdown. This will continue to delay the swearing in of Adelita Grijalva, who would be the 218th vote of the Epstein discharge petition, which is what I explained before. Congresswoman AOC writes the following: the government is in full shutdown, and the Republicans are refusing to call the House back into session. Want to know why? Because we have secured the final vote on releasing the Epstein files, and they don't want it out. Call GOP and tell them to swear in Adelita Grijalva, Congresswoman-elect from Arizona's 7th Congressional District. Congresswoman-elect Grijalva just posted, still playing games with my swearing-in date? The people of Southern Arizona deserve voices in Congress now. What are the Republicans so afraid of? One more vote for accountability. Congresswoman Fernandez says, Day 3 shutdown update. Speaker Johnson just canceled next week's votes instead of working to end this shutdown. Is it because they don't want to lower Americans' health care costs, or because they don't want to release the Epstein files? I think we know the answer. It's both. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom says, look, I don't think this shutdown benefits anyone. I hope we can reach a compromise, but it's difficult to do compromises with Donald Trump, a guy more interested in playing golf over the weekend. And MAGA Mike, who says to his Republicans, we're on vacation, time to party. Who does that? Time to vacation, time to party? Here, play this clip.
I don't think a shutdown advantages anybody. So I hope we can find compromise. It's difficult to do that with a guy who was more interested in playing golf over the weekend.
Do you think Democrats should?
I'll continue.
Democrats.
Not only he played golf all the weekend after canceling a meeting with Senate Democrats. The President of the United States canceled a meeting with the leaders in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, and then felt it was more important, hours before a shutdown, to play golf. And then, rather than having a serious meeting, decided to troll those leaders with a Trump 2028 hat that he put on the Resolute desk and sent out a tweet after he sent out an AI video doctored with a racist video of Speaker Jeffries in a sombrero. These are not serious people.
Meanwhile, the Democratic leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, says the following. We just heard that Speaker Johnson said it's time for a vacation. Seriously? Here, play this clip.
First, well, we just heard that Speaker Johnson said the House is out again. Johnson and House Republicans care more about protecting the Epstein files than protecting the American people.
That part.
Now, I agree here wholeheartedly with Jessica Tarlov on Fox. Moments ago, she said, you want to try to mock the Democrats, messengers, do it all you want. But the reality is, in every single poll, Washington Post, Marist, New York Times, Morning Consult, by huge amounts, the American people blame Donald Trump, MAGA Mike Johnson, and the MAGA Republicans for this shutdown. Of course, Donald Trump is like in the witness protection program, right? He's just totally disappeared. He's not doing public appearances. And MAGA Mike just told the Republicans it's time to party and go on a vacation. Of course it's their fault. The Democrats are there to work. I interviewed Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries yesterday, and he said, look, we're here. Let's do this in public. Show up. Let's do it in front of the cameras. MAGA Mike's response is, let's go on vacation? Seriously? Here, play this clip.
You get free health care. You do what you want. You want to make fun of us. You want to say,
no, we just want you to acknowledge what you're identifying as legitimate isn't.
The thing is, you can mock Democratic messengers all that you want, but then that just says something terrible about the Republicans because we are lapping you when it comes to this. Washington Post, 17 percentage point advantage for the Republicans as who is responsible. Marist, New York Times, Siena, Morning Consult. Should we extend the ACA subsidies? The Kaiser Family Foundation, 78% say yes, including a majority of Republicans, including a majority of MAGA Republicans. Washington Post, 71% yes. The Wall Street Journal reporting today, inside the White House, aides are discussing proposals to extend the enhanced subsidies for the Affordable Care Act health insurance plans, officials said. Republicans know that they are being blamed for it, and rightly so. They're trying to kick the can down the road. They said, well, we'll deal with it the next time, but you have to make your plan choices in November, not in December when we're going to deal with this again.
Well, and then the MAGA Republicans don't want to acknowledge what all of the polling data says. Here's MAGA Republican Senator Roger Marshall. Play this clip.
Washington Post poll that was just out here showing more Americans are actually blaming President Trump and you guys, congressional Republicans, for the shutdown than Democrats. Is that giving you pause?
Oh, I think that's a very false scenario right there. I think everybody realizes this is a Schumer shutdown, that this is a politically driven shutdown, driven by AOC and the squad and the liberal Marxist portion of the Democrat Party. I think that's truly what's going on here. That's because, and then none of their arguments make sense why they're trying to shut it down. It just doesn't make any sense to anybody. So I would just discount that poll altogether, and that's not what I'm hearing from back home.
Why do you discount that?
Well, I just think there's so much other polls that say just the opposite. I think that
which one?
The arguments out there, I don't have them at my fingertips right now. I can tell you that's a very biased poll. I'm absolutely convinced that this is a
why is it biased? Can you explain?
More. I don't even know who was it from? I don't even know.
The Washington Post. I mean, if it's biased, you should know which one it is. It's the Washington Post poll.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you can take a snapshot like that. What I'm hearing back home is that people think that this is a Schumer shutdown. This is a political shutdown, that AOC has hijacked the party, and this is the direction that they want to go, that they've taken this.
And now here's Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, who says, look, they want to do their deep fake AI videos. All right, but You're going to hide behind that versus actually try to reach a solution for the American people while you take away the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which is going to cause healthcare costs for most Americans to double or triple? Here, play this clip.
Because everything that President Trump has done subsequent to Monday has been unhinged and unserious. In fact, Donald Trump is in the Presidential Witness Protection Program. No one can find him when it comes to the government shutdown issue because he knows he's responsible for having caused it. And the behavior, the erratic behavior that we've seen, is further confirmation of that unfortunate fact.
And Senate Democrats are very clear. They're holding the line. Here, play this clip.
Their threat doesn't work on me. What I care about is the fact that they're going to increase the cost on working class Americans.
There's no question that the shutdown will be painful, but we need to take a stand.
I've actually been surprised at the fact that federal workers have felt so, using Russ Vought's term, terrorized by this administration, that they may be the strongest group yet saying, you got to push back. Now, the question will become, will they have that same view 3 weeks from now? I don't know.
And there's a sign there, John, that this could last for some time into next week. They don't come back here in a session in the Senate until Friday. At that time, we expect a vote again on that same Republican bill. If that fails, they may even go home for the weekend and come back next week, which means we could go into week 2 of the shutdown.
Is anyone talking to each other at least? Any bipartisan talks?
No, there was actually not, John. There were some informal discussions among some members from both parties on the Senate floor because there's a lot of unease among senators, but that has not been authorized by Republican leadership. And Republican leaders are saying very clearly the one option is the bill that passed the House, the 7-week extension of government funding. That's it. Nothing else. The question is, they say, if Democrats come on board.
All right, Manu Raju up on cap.
Now, this made big news yesterday when I interviewed Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries. And he said, for all of this talk that MAGA Republicans want to do, Trump, MAGA Mike, Thune, J.D. Vance, that, this is about illegal immigrants and illegal immigrants are taking away our health care. Congressmember Jeffrey says to me, when we met in the White House and Trump refused to have the cameras there, he said they didn't even speak about unlawful migrants or undocumented migrants. He said maybe 10 seconds of the hour-long meeting, they may have mentioned it. He goes, they don't mention it because they know it's all BS. Then they go out in front of the cameras and that's what they talk about. He goes, we're saying in front of the cameras what we're saying behind the cameras. That's why we want to do these conversations in front of the cameras. And it's obvious why MAGA Mike Johnson, Donald Trump, Senator Thune, and J.D. Vance don't want to do it in front of the cameras. Here, play this clip.
What's interesting in that Oval Office meeting, it was the meeting lasted for over an hour. And the amount of time that we spent literally in talking about the issue of health insurance for undocumented immigrants was less than 10 seconds. You know why? Because they know it's a lie. So they didn't even bother to bring it up because the cameras weren't rolling. But they'll go out to their press conferences without us, where we're not able to fact check them in real time, and they'll continue to try to spout that lie. But the American people aren't buying it. They know this fight is about Medicaid. It's about their hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics. It's certainly about the Affordable Care Act.
So what is Donald Trump doing? Well, Donald Trump is out here forcing the Treasury Department to print $1 Donald Trump coins. Yep, the U.S. Treasurer Brandon Beach has confirmed this is happening. And all the MAGA influencers are celebrating it. Attention all patriots, America is back. And so is the $1 coin. Donald Trump will be the face of the $1 coin, according to Treasurer Beach and Scott Besson. The first draft show that our nation is ready to fight, fight, fight. Okay, so you're focused on golden ballrooms, gold in the Oval Office, Club Rose Garden, UFC fights, golfing, $1 Trump coins, Qatari jets, funneling billions of dollars from the Middle East into your family companies. That's what we're doing right here, rather than addressing the shutdown. Here's Democratic Governor from Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. Here's what he had to say. Let's play it.
And then I'll just take it up 10,000 feet to remind everybody that
why this shutdown is taking place. The President of the United States decided to shut down the government because he's unwilling to sit down with Democrats to discuss things. And he thinks that the right thing to do is simply to fold his arms and let people go without pay, to get furloughed, and let all the services that people rely upon shut down. I think that's wrong. And I think that instead, because you need Democratic votes to get something done here, that he should simply sit down with the leaders and actually hash out a deal. He wrote a book, or supposedly wrote a book, called The Art of the Deal, and says he's a great deal maker. Time to go to work.
Finally, the Midas Touch Network was able to link up with Pete Buttigieg in Syracuse. Our Syracuse correspondent, Luke Riddell, spoke with Buttigieg, and here's what Buttigieg said about the shutdown exclusively on the Midas Touch Network. Here, play this clip.
And welcome to Syracuse.
Thanks. Glad to be with you.
So you have not yet weighed in an interview on the ongoing government shutdown. And I'm curious, watching what's happening in Washington, what your thoughts are.
Well, it's pretty clear to me that you've got President and Republican Congress who would rather see the entire government shut down than allow Americans to be able to afford their health care. I mean, it really comes down to that. Basically, what they're saying is, we'll only have the government stay open if you Democrats vote against one of your core principles, which is to make sure people can afford health care. Now, the problem, of course, is that this president and this administration, this Republican Congress, are also happy to see the federal government destroyed. They're giddy about the fact that they can do even more damage in the context of a shutdown, which is exactly the kind of chaos that this president brings every single day, and what I think Americans are more and more fatigued with.
So, MAGA Mike Johnson, here he is being asked by Fox, well, what about people who are not on Medicaid on the Affordable Care Act plans? When these subsidies expire, their monthly premiums are going to triple or quadruple. If you're paying $300 a month, it'll be like $900 a month. If you make $85,000 a year and you were paying $8,000 a year annual premiums, you're now going to be paying $24,000 in annual premiums. This is real, MAGA Mike. So what's your response? And MAGA Mike goes, the answer is not to grow government and further subsidize insurance companies. In other words, I don't give a shit about the people. And by the way, if you're interested in my own personal view, although my opinion may or may not matter to you, I believe there should be universal health care personally. I believe the way to improve the Affordable Care Act is to make health care free for everybody in the United States. That's my view of it, okay? You may disagree with it, but the Affordable Care Act plan is the best we got. Before that, there were tens of millions of people uninsured who would just die and go into medical bankruptcies. And so these subsidies are important to keep the monthly premiums low. But here's what MAGA Mike says. Here, play this clip.
Morning in the Wall Street Journal, she talks about Republicans, healthcare, the policy, and the messaging. Do you agree with her that the Republicans are weak, vulnerable on healthcare policy at this moment, when a lot of Americans are saying they are worried about the high prices, but there's just very little discussion about why the prices are so high?
Exactly. We're all concerned about that. But if they look at the facts, Republicans are the ones that are solving the problem. In the big, beautiful bill, when we put the reforms in for Medicaid, what we've done is brought down the premiums and we have eliminated the fraud, waste, and abuse. The CBO is the analyst that just put that out, August 25th. Go look it up. And they said the CBO is not a Republican group. They're the neutral arbiters here. And they say the Republicans are right, because what we did was save $185 billion of waste and abuse in the program with our reforms. And we're going to get 2.3 ineligible recipients off of that. That's those illegal aliens. That's the young, able-bodied men.
But what about
who are
people who are not on Medicaid, people who are either on the Obama exchanges or are worried they're going to lose their employee-sponsored health insurance?
Yes, we have a lot of reforms that we need to push through, but the answer is not to grow government and further subsidize insurance companies, which is exactly what those subsidies do. It doesn't help bring premiums down. We got to do it for the people, not for the insurance companies. That's a pretty important distinction.
Sir, thank you for your time. Appreciate you coming on. I don't know, what are you getting, like 3 hours of sleep a night?
And finally, MAGA Mike is asked, well, how do you say you take no pleasure in this shutdown when you're all like posting memes and going on vacations and like you like laughing about it? Like you seem like you're like enjoying this. Watch what MAGA Mike says. Play it.
Chad.
Square something for me. How can you say that they take no pleasure in this, and then the next minute say, oh, they're just having fun and trolling people? This is a government shutdown. On one hand, you say this is very serious, that people's jobs are on the line. On the other hand, you say, oh, this is just fun and games and they're trolling.
So the effects are very serious on real people, real Americans. We support federal employees who do a great job in all these different areas, but what they're trying to have fun with, trying to make light of, is to point out the absurdity of the Democrats' position. And they're using memes and all the, tools of social media to do that. Some people, find that entertaining, but at the end of the day, the decisions are hard ones. And I'm telling you, they're not taking any pleasure in that. Yes.
Well, there you have it, folks. I'm just bringing the receipts. I'm showing you the facts. You could judge for yourself, but there it is. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
And ladies and gents, fasten seat belts and get ready for a bumpy ride, all right? It's completely ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. I don't think that doesn't make any sense to me. For those people, unfortunately, you still have some people that think that Affordable Care Act and Obamacare are two different things. There are some people that believe, I hate Obamacare, but I love the Affordable Care, ACA. It is the same thing. It's just like have somebody in your neighborhood that everybody knows him by Pookie, but Pookie's name is Johnny Brown. So I hate Johnny Brown. I can't stand Pookie, but I love some Johnny Brown. It's the same person. And for those people that listen and pay attention, for all these cuts that's going to happen, the most people that are going to be affected are people that live on red states, that depend on everything from the federal government. Just like I was watching a couple of videos this week, and I make some posts on my social media about the farmers, that they saw a lot of soybeans during the Biden administration, billions of dollars, but now they can't sell for anybody because all the shit the Trump administration is doing. So, ladies and gents, and I said that before, I don't mind paying my share taxes, that I know those taxes are being used to help the people. One thing that pissed me off is that the billionaires are the ones getting all the cuts, all the benefits, and pay almost nothing to zero in taxes. Meanwhile, you and I, the average Joe, are paying the most. So we are eating rice and eggs because that's what we can afford, paying all those taxes and have to pay all those bills that everybody has. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos and all these huge billionaires are eating, drinking the most expensive French champagne and eat the best restaurant, caviar, escargot, and the best food because they're not paying anything. Which sense does that make? Now, there's going to be a whole lot of people that the health insurance, is going to increase. And who benefit that? The health insurance companies. They have the lobbyists that the Republicans are on their pocket. Michael, as you heard in the last video from Midas Touch, that he's refused to swear this duly elected Congresswoman from Arizona because he knows she's the pivotal vote to release the Epstein files. But he's holding her to be swear to start, make her oath and start being part of her job in Congress. So now you tell me, you can see the chaos that's going on right now. Now, you may not be affected directly because you are not a federal employee, but I guess next time you're going to catch a flight and you see that long ass line and have only maybe 8 TSA agents, and because it took forever for you to go through security and you miss your flight, I bet put money on it, they're going to be bitching and moaning at the gate, cussing everybody out, the gay agent and everybody. But these people are now, why should I go work for free if I got all those bills? And I'm not mad at them if they call out. Do what you want to do. The same way also in the aviation industry, because I have discussion, I talked to you about it. I made a video about it many of once about talking about the crew members. The same way during boarding, they don't get paid. The only time they crew members on the flight start getting paid when the main cabin doors close and the brakes are released. That's when that pay started. So if it has any delays before that door's closed, they may be 2 or 3 hours in the airport or inside the plane without getting paid. So it's going to, I always see the glass half full, ladies and gents, but it's clear to me that Donald Trump and his minions really don't care about anybody else by themselves. Trump's families make a lot of money. You know, all these Republicans, I know, like I said, they're gonna get paid because they get paid, ladies and gents. But for those that do not know, all these people, the people in the Congress, the Senate, they get paid, shutdown or not. They have one of the best health insurance providers in the country. So why they go on vacation? And then they have one of the easiest retirement. Because you and I, the average Joe, have to work on a job maybe 15, 20, 30 years to put some money on your 401k to have a decent rest of your time on this earth once you retire. Meanwhile, if one of these people just serve one term, they automatically get retirement. So you serve one term, that could be 4 years, and you get to say, you know what, I don't want to be part of that. You already get automatic retirement. So you're set, and they still get the benefits from health care. So do you think Michael Johnson care about you and I? Do you really think that all these premiums are going to be increased? The 17 million people that already have been wiped out from Medicare? Do you think that he really care? If you believe that, that's on you, homeboy. And then I have another video I told two or three episodes ago about Trump maybe going to the upper room, and he make a statement, I've tried to do everything else to go to heaven. You have this fake ass rapture, that was my last episode, that some people believe, yes, you're going to heaven, and this is coming. But how are you living? And how you support? All this is going to reflect on you later. I have 2 bad news that happened this past week. One good friend of mine's father passed away, and one good homeboy that was in the military with me when I was in Brazil, that was on my platoon, he just passed away at the age of 55. Nobody knows when that time is coming, ladies and gents. I'm about to be 54 this coming week. So nobody knows when that day comes. So, and at the end of the day, my true belief is accountability once you go to the other side. Now you believe whatever you want to believe. That's on you. You may say my beliefs may be wrong, but I rather live a life or try to do the right thing, to live on the righteous way, on the righteous path, and support and cast my vote on those candidates that I believe want to use the position and use the political power for the people. That's what the government supposed to be, for the people, not for them to enrich themselves and live the best life on the back of others. That's what I believe, ladies and gentlemen. So, once again, the Republicans has the White House, they have the House of Representatives, they have the Senate, and I'm going to say a time more, they have the Supreme Court, because they have 9 justices, 6 are conservatives. So they are the majority. So even though the other 3 justices try to vote against, their vote doesn't count, because the other 6 going to vote in favor of all those shenanigans. So you damn if you do, you damn if you don't. So I say that many times, I'm preaching this forever, because politics is a necessary evil that you need to be involved with. Because all these people, did I vote for this? Yes, you did. You did vote for that. The only difference is that when you voted, you thought whatever's going on with you right now, the people that suffer and lose the jobs and lose the farmers and all this hell that's breaking loose, you thought that would help with somebody else. That's what you thought. Look at the Cubans. Are you vote for Donald Trump? Whoop, out. Or look at like I said, look at the farmers. You know, look at all this, and all these people that losing health care, lose the jobs, they lose everything. Because I did not vote for these. And then the sad part is this, that even though the farmers lose everything, they still gonna vote Republican. Because I saw a video about this young guy, he barely have a high school diploma. That was on TikTok. He barely have a high school diploma, but he wanted some technical school, and then he decided to go into solar panel. He got a bunch of training, and then that was before doing Biden administration. That he was living his best life right now because he's making some good money on solar panel, because the infrastructure bill has been passed, and all this money that the government and the states were getting, he's like, oh man, I like this is good. That's a good money for me, for my family. I never thought I would make this kind of money. And then when it comes elections, he decided to vote for Trump. And guess what? Trump got rid of all those benefits and all this money that he said was getting. Now he's out of the job. But he still do not want to recognize that who made him lose his job was Trump and the Republicans. And that's the problem. Because these people are being basically, getting throats being cut off, but they still want to support and vote for those people that took their job, took their livelihood in the first place. Which sense does that make? I just don't understand. I just don't get it. But it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. So once again, fasten seat belts, brace for impact, because there's some turbulence come through. You know what I'm saying? I just don't want to hear no cry for all those people that are Republicans, all the red states. I don't want to hear no cry about it when the hell break loose on their hands and come towards them. All right, ladies and gents. So do what's right, ladies and gents. Be focused on the good things. Make sure that you participate and vote. vote for the right party that wants to do something for you, not only for the wealth. So, okay, so please, if you like this video, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor, click on the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and share with at least 5 people that you know that would like to listen and learn about some stuff that's going on. And once again, all these videos I play, I give credit for all those people. Give credit for MSNBC, Glenn Kushner, News Nation, and the Midas Touch. And the description of those videos is going to be, the link of those videos is going to be under my description. All right, so please be safe, be kind, and be blessed. You do the best what you can do with what you got. Salute. And I see you next Saturday. Holla!
Push I on the block, holding my down, sucker rappers get lost.